One of the quickest ways to make progress here is to eliminate any sort of wishy-washy permission language, whether it's with yourself or your team or those people around you in general. Just eliminate it. Mistakes are a part of everything that we do in growing as people and growing our businesses. Everybody makes mistakes, but the key is to learn from those mistakes and adjust as you go. Being decisive doesn't mean you're always right. It means you're willing to take responsibility and course correct when necessary. Straight up, it's just about progress, not about perfection.
Sicker than your average, sicker than your average. Sicker than your average, sicker than your average.
What's up, everyone? This is Matt of The Lifestyle Practice, where together with my partners, Derek and Steve, as you all know, we're not just podcasters. The main way that we make an impact and work with dentists like you all is through one-on-one coaching. So if you're ready to take your practice to the next level, email me, Matt, at thelifestylepractice.com, or reach out to any of us by going to our website, thelifestylepractice.com. Today, we're talking about taking action quickly in your practice to create results. So picture this, a problem arises in your practice. Do you hesitate, second guess yourself, or do you make a decision and take action immediately? Here's the honest truth. The most successful people in any field, any entrepreneurial venture, doesn't have to be dental practice ownership. They're making decisions quickly and confidently. You could be an associate and you could be thinking about purchasing a practice of your own or starting a practice of your own. And I'm going to guess you've been thinking about that for a long time. That's an important decision. It's okay to be thinking about that for a long time, but when are you going to take action? I can't tell you how many dentists I come in contact with who have been thinking about something for years, something like a practice purchase or starting a practice, years. And the truth of the matter is we have a limited time on this planet. We have a limited time to have energy to start a practice, grow a practice. I find that we take time for granted sometimes. And it is amazing how the days and the weeks and the months and the years can pile up as we have these constant battles of indecision with ourselves instead of just saying, you know what, by this time next month, I'm going to have purchased a practice, or by this time next month, I'm going to have secured financing to start a practice of my own, and keeping ourselves accountable to it. And honestly, when I'm talking about this, I can say I know exactly what this feels like because I used to be this type of person. I used to be the type of person who would have this analysis paralysis and constantly be reviewing and deliberating over every little decision in my dental practice, little decisions about the schedule, little decisions about ordering supplies. And I was deliberating myself and afraid to delegate those things to my team. And it definitely stunted the growth of my practice early on. And as you're listening to this, maybe you're driving to the office or driving home, I bet you can think of something in your practice that you've been thinking about or deliberating on that you just haven't made a decision on yet. And I'm here to tell you and try to reach through the airwaves here and grab you and say, make a decision today and move forward. One of the quickest ways to make progress here is to eliminate any sort of wishy-washy permission language, whether it's with yourself or your team or those people around you in general. Just eliminate it. Phrases like, is it okay if I blank? Or do you think we should blank? Those just signal uncertainty, lack of confidence, and you're never going to make progress with that type of mindset. Just decide today, if this is something that affects you, to use assertive language. Say things like, I propose we do this, or let's move forward with this. The shift in language not only changes how others perceive you, but it changes how you perceive yourself. If you talk like this and you think like this, you're going to become a person of action. Now, you might be thinking, what if I make a wrong decision? I mean, here's the thing. You're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are a part of everything that we do in growing as people and growing our businesses. Everybody makes mistakes, but the key is to learn from those mistakes and adjust as you go. Being decisive doesn't mean you're always right. It means you're willing to take responsibility and course correct when necessary. Straight up, it's just about progress, not about perfection. And too often we seek perfection in what we are doing. We want to make decisions. They're not always going to be right, but we can course correct as we go. There are so many examples I can think of in my head right now, but I can give you a few that are specific to dentistry. Some of that which come from me and some of which come from dentists I've interacted with. One that I can think of is dentist I was speaking with. He sent me some messages and he was asking about what to do about a transfer fee. And this was $1,000 transfer fee for him to take the Dentrix license from the previous owner. And he was deliberating and trying to negotiate and wondering if he should change practice management systems and taking so much time and energy to try to figure this out. And I wanted to tell this guy, dude, make a decision. Your time is worth so much. But not only that, when you're wasting time and energy on silly decisions like this and deliberations, that's energy that you can't invest in other areas of growth in your practice. An example from me early on in my startup was trying a bunch of different labs to try to figure out which one was the best balance of quality and cost, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at one point, there were maybe 5 different labs I was using in my practice and trying for simple crown and bridge. And I wanted to see the results and compare. And I swear my assistants were probably going crazy. This was very early on, and I think back on that and think of how silly that was to make this big process for nothing, really. If I had to go back and do it again, I'd say, which lab seems the best? This one. We're going to go with that one, and we're going to use them for a month. And if there's anything that's wrong, we'll check in at the end of the month. If not, that's the one we're going with. And I made that decision just now in my head in about 10 seconds. And there are so many things in your practice that you can do in a similar fashion. Another great example that I can give that, and this is a discussion that we have with coaching clients all the time, is reducing your hours and your schedule at the practice, going from maybe 4 days to 3, and the endless deliberation that people want to get into when it comes to a decision like this. Now, don't get me wrong. We want to think through all options. We want to think through worst case scenarios, best case scenarios. We want to make sure that your team in a situation like this is taken care of and that they are happy. But at some point, you have to make a decision, and you have to say, at this date, and this is how it goes down a lot of the time. By this date, my schedule is going from 4 days to 3 days per week. Simple. How are we going to fit those patients in elsewhere? Or what if somebody's needed, for a temporary that comes off on Thursday when you're not working, doc? We'll figure it out. It's not that you're a bad dentist. It's not that you're not taking care of your patients in these scenarios. You're just figuring it out. And there's an example of this type of decision making that Tim Ferriss uses, and I think we've talked about it on the podcast before, but I love it. It's defining the true worst case scenario. It's called fear setting in any decision that you make. And when you're deliberating, when you're stuck in this loop of thought on what to do, sometimes it helps to just truly define the absolute worst case scenario. There was a dentist I was advising on a practice transition, and we had done a ton of due diligence. And we knew that this practice was a great deal. He was going to be able to grow this practice almost immediately. But we kept going through, and this awesome dentist, awesome guy, but just tried to continue to deliberate, continue to get due diligence items. There was some funky accounting going on with the practice. And at some point, I said to him, let's define what the worst case scenario is here. Worst case, you step into this practice and there is $50,000 on the A&R report that you'll never collect that you thought you were going to be able to. Is that really the worst thing that could happen in the world? You've just purchased an awesome practice. You've doubled, nearly tripled your income potential from being an associate. That is going to be a blip on the radar of your life and career if something like that were to happen. And what's the best case scenario? You collect all of that money that you were worried about. In his case, that he was worried about on this A&R report. So once we did that and we realized, if that actually happened, my life would still go on. My career would be fine. I'd still be in great shape. It didn't seem like that big of a deal. And so that's the feedback loop we have to get out of. And when I say we, I'm talking to you all out there. The constant deliberation of trying to perfect whatever we're doing, it just leads to analysis paralysis. The way that successful people, not just in dentistry, but in any field, make progress, the most successful people, they are able to answer questions with a yes or a no 99% of the time when it comes to operating their business. Sure, they're taking into account the thoughts and feelings of people who are important to them, how decisions affect their family, how they affect their team members. But at the end of the day, they are making decisions. Now, let's define some caveats here, because I don't want everyone jumping into my email saying, "Well, Matt, I took your advice and I decided to start a practice down the corner and I just decided to go for it." Okay, please don't do that. There are certain types of decisions that do require a ton of deliberation and research and thought and planning. And one thing that you've got to get really good at as a business owner or a future business owner is knowing which decisions require that type of intensity. Take my dental lab example. That is not something that needs intense deliberation and a lot of time and thought. Make a decision. If it works, great. If not, course correct and figure out how to correct your mistake. Where where to open a dental practice. That is a massive decision. So we want to do the research. You want to do the demographics reports. You want to visit the site during the day, during the night. Is it in a good area of town? Is it a bad area of town? What's the growth going to be like in that area? Just using that as one example, that is a type of decision that needs a lot of foresight. Some things in your practice could require this as well. Maybe it's a team member who's not performing the way they should, and you've decided to give them a plan of action to get better. These types of decisions that do require some foresight and some thought and some deliberation, here's what you can do. Give yourself a deadline to make a decision or to accomplish one of these things. That might be, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, by this time next month, I will have secured financing to start my dental practice or to purchase a dental practice. By this time next week, I will have evaluated my team members' performance and I will decide if they are going to stay or if they're going to go. One last piece of advice that I can give on this topic for today is looping back to the beginning of the podcast. Let's not forget about the power of action and the power of momentum in your life and in your career. Decisions mean nothing without action. I know a lot of you probably listen to this podcast every week religiously, but if all you're doing is listening to this podcast and taking nothing from what we've talked about and bringing it into your life and career, you've accomplished nothing. You've got to take action, or you've got to make decisions confidently, yes or no, and then follow through immediately with those decisions. Taking action builds momentum, and momentum drives success. It's a positive feedback cycle. The more you act, the more confident you become, and then the easier it becomes to make decisions down the road. Do you want to really catapult your life and career? Get rid of the wishy-washy permission language. Quit constantly deliberating with every little decision in your life or career. Get used to making decisions very quickly, yes or no, and figure it out as you go. If you're ready to work together and really catapult your life and your career through practice ownership, reach out to me, Matt, at thelifestylepractice.com, or visit our website, thelifestylepractice.com, for more information about what we're all about. Until next time, cheers.
Sicker than your